Hey guys, I got probably 2 videos to make today. One is this one where I'm going to talk about the debate last night, and 2, I'm going to talk about who I think is going to win the election and exactly what's going to happen in the general. You guys already know who I think is going to win the primary, but let's just go ahead and talk about the debate last night. So I watched Black Conservative Perspectives, his live stream on it, and I saw a bunch of the memes that were coming out of it, and also just in general, all the rhetoric that was going back and forth. So who do I think won the debate? Well, let's start with who I think lost the debate. And a lot of mainstream media and legacy media and online media, they're coping and seething, and they have their own takes on this that I think are completely wrong. And if you follow Twitter, which Twitter isn't real life either, but a lot of the polls on Twitter are probably more accurate than mainstream media. So first of all, who came in last place? Last place, by far, definitely, was Chris Christie. 1, he was being ignored by the questioners. 2, he got owned several times. He didn't get many good jabs in. One of the things that was asked of him is basically, hey, you're polling at like 20% favorability amongst Republicans, and Donald Trump is polling at 80% favorability. Why the hell do you think that you even have a chance if your own party doesn't like you? And if you actually look, like, between the Republican Party's favorability and favorability in general for Chris Christie, there's basically no difference. It's like 25 in favor of and like 80% against, or like, 60% against, because there's a bunch of unsure in there. Now, generally, when you look at the polls, like say you're looking at Morning Consult or something like that, it'll be like 25% Republicans like Chris Christie, and then 75% of Republicans like Donald Trump. So it's clear that the other 25% don't like Donald Trump, so they like Chris Christie, or they're unsure of Donald Trump, but they like how Chris Christie calls Donald Trump out. But sometimes you'll get something weird, like Morning Consult a month ago had 76% of Republicans in favor of Donald Trump and 25% in favor of Chris Christie, which means at minimum there was like what, 0.5%, 1% of people that like both Chris Christie and Donald Trump. And I'm just like, what demographic is that? What actual demographic likes both Chris Christie and Donald Trump? It's just weird. But for the most part, it's more like 70. If you actually look at the aggregate, it's like 73% of Republicans like Donald Trump, and like 19% of Republicans like Chris Christie. So the people who don't like Donald Trump in the Republican Party fall on Chris Christie, and there's like no overlap there whatsoever. But he definitely came in last, and he really tried to suck up to Nikki Haley. And the reason being, in my opinion, is that he knows that he's in dead last of the remainder. Because let's face it, Hutchinson is not, he's not important. And, yeah, actually Hutchinson's the only one left who wasn't on that stage last night, because it's a 6-man race now, and Hutchinson didn't make it. If they were to hold another debate, Chris Christie definitely wouldn't make it, and maybe Ramaswamy wouldn't even make it. It would just be between Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. But Yeah, he lost, definitely. I expect to see his numbers going down, or basically just staying the same. He tried to suck up to Nikki Haley, which won't work, specifically because it wouldn't make any sense for her to accept his endorsement or to run with him just because he's so unpopular. That, like, if he asked her, hey, I can drop out, you give me a cabinet position, and I'll endorse you, and Nikki Haley would probably refuse the endorsement just because he is the most hated person left in the race. And he was more hated than Mike Pence was. So, yeah, that alliance is definitely not going to work out, especially since you saw what happened during the debate is he came in defense of Nikki Haley, and Nikki Haley did not return the favor. She did not thank him. She might have thanked him afterwards when no one was listening, but she definitely didn't thank him during the actual debate. And they're running against each other. There's no alliance there, despite what the mainstream media is trying to say. Then, him coming in dead last, too, it's just because he was just completely ignored, or when he wasn't ignored, he was being backhanded by everyone on stage. Or at least Ramaswamy was backhanding him. And even the moderators were giving him some sass with their questions. So, second to last. This one's also pretty obvious. Nikki Haley. Ron DeSantis is in second behind Donald Trump. And Nikki Haley was coming up on him and coming close to actually overtaking him. And she overtook Ramaswamy, and he wants to push her back down so he can reclaim third place. So Ron DeSantis and Ramaswamy were going after her, and they were going after her hard, really hard, like absolutely humiliating her hard, especially when she couldn't even name the provinces in Ukraine that she wants America to fight for. I mean, if she even just guessed the Donbass, that would have been better than nothing. Even though the Donbass is multiple provinces. It's like an entire region and not a province. It's like saying the Midwest or something. Where it's like, yeah, the Midwest is a region of the United States, but there's a lot of states inside the Midwest. And she couldn't even name the general regions, let alone the provinces. And Vivek Ramaswamy came in there with that Nikki equals corrupt, which has turned into a meme overnight. Which means she's going to get absolutely destroyed on Twitter. Which again, Twitter's not real life. The mainstream media definitely came out in her defense, and they're really coping and seething and trying to protect her. Which also makes her look pretty bad, because when you got MSNBC defending you, the far left networks, yeah, that's not going to appeal to conservatives. Especially when you're playing identity politics. Oh, Vivek Ramaswamy is a sexist because he dared criticize a woman. How dare he? Yeah, that's not gonna help Nikki Haley's case that she's not an establishment uniparty shill. I expect her to take a dive in the polls, but it's also completely possible that no one actually moves in the polls. But she definitely came in third place just because she was attacked so much. But she probably will do better than Chris Christie, because at least mainstream media people will defend her and try to re-elevate her and make sure that she stays in second, or at least try to keep her in third. Then you have who came in second place. And that would obviously be Ron DeSantis. Yeah, a lot of people are on and off about this because Ramaswamy got booed, but that crowd was obviously really, really for Nikki Haley and Chris Christie. They booed Ramaswamy and they were cheering like everything Chris Christie and Nikki Haley said. So they were obviously all like donors, the donor class for the establishment, the neocons on stage. It's like, remember, Donald Trump got booed during the debates in 2016, or in 2020, or 2015, I guess technically. And he basically said, like, I'm not talking to any of you out of the crowd. I'm talking to the people at home. And Trump won huge in the primaries. He's going to win even bigger now. Not as much. He's not going to win as big as he did in 2020 because he's actually got some competition this time around. But it's still going to be a huge percentage. But Ron DeSantis comes in second place specifically because he did get a few zingers in here or there, but he didn't come out with anything new. And he actually got his butt handed to him a few times by Chris Christie, of all people. Specifically when he was refusing to answer the question. Like, he would answer the question, a bunch of people would start cheering, and then Chris Christie would come out and it's like, you didn't actually answer anything. You didn't answer the question, you, like, just give an answer. And it was quite clear that he probably didn't lose anything, but he probably didn't gain anything either. And he also this happened with a few candidates. I think it's happened with all of them, but all of them kind of switched positions on a few topics and denying that they said stuff that we know they said. And they were calling each other out for it, kind of like all just dogpiling each other. Which again is why I think that this debate won't actually change anything that much. But we will be able to figure out by at least Monday, maybe as far as next Friday, when the polls come out. And it'll be interesting too once Hutchinson drops, because he's got to be dropping soon, I assume, right? But yeah, it's definitely, he's definitely came in second there, just because he didn't do anything that would have gained any support that he wasn't getting already. So the actual winner of the debate is then Ramaswamy, specifically because he tore everyone else down. I'm not sure if he will gain anything, because a lot of people basically see Ramaswamy as the punk, as the annoying, like, know-it-all kind of dude, and childish, basically. He's like Donald Trump without the history and the charisma. But a lot of people on Twitter definitely like him, and he was the one who was winning in all the Twitter polls. Now, the mainstream media will attack him, so any boomers that actually watch mainstream media probably won't be too happy about him, especially since, like, people like my mom like Nikki Haley. So he's not going to gain anyone there. The Zoomers don't really care about the elections. They're just going to stay ignorant. So it would be like millennials and Gen X that would care. Gen X is the most well put together, so they were already probably decided on which party they were going to vote for. And millennials, like me, I mean, let's face it, a lot of millennials are kind of stuck in the woke nonsense, or the neocon such, so they probably won't gain that much, like, sympathy for Ramaswamy. But he attacked everyone. He did exactly what he was supposed to, and I'm pretty sure that, I don't know, man, I don't know who Styx thinks is the Confederate in the race, the guy who's helping Donald Trump. But it's got to be Ramaswamy, because Ramaswamy basically just came out and was like, all three of these people were basically kissing Donald Trump's feet, washing his feet in oils, in now that Donald Trump is still beating them all, they all turned against him. And a lot of them, I mean, like, for example, Ron DeSantis was like, hey, time wins against all people. But he wouldn't specifically say that he thought that Donald Trump was slowing down. Like, it was kind of like he was implying that, well, he's not yet, but he might during the term, so therefore we shouldn't vote him in. But he didn't want to play to the mainstream media's narrative that Donald Trump is somehow becoming senile. And I love when they say that too, because whenever they say he's becoming senile, they always play the clip of him making fun of Joe Biden acting senile. So he's pretending to be Joe Biden being senile than him actually being senile. It's just like, I also seen Ron DeSantis fans play 7-second clips of him. And also, I've seen mainstream media say it was very clear that Donald Trump was mocking the media when he was saying that, yeah, I'll be a dictator, but only for a day, and then I'll stop being a dictator. And everyone's like, oh my God, he admitted that he'll be a dictator, not realizing that he's just completely trolling them and mocking them to their faces, including Sean Hannity. And he's more gently ribbing Sean Hannity, but he's definitely trolling the rest of the mainstream media. But yeah, I think Ramaswamy wins just because he tore everyone else down, and he came out in defense of Donald Trump, which will keep him popular with the base. Which means out of all of them, he is probably the only one who's actually going to have a career after 2024. Ron DeSantis might be able to run for the Senate, and if people in Florida still like him, he might win it, barely. And then maybe MAGA down there will eventually forgive him. But it's unlikely that MAGA nationally will ever forgive Ron DeSantis. I mean, I'm willing to, maybe, depending on who runs in 2028 and who their what their policies are, because I'm a bit more of a warmonger. Not really a warmonger, but more military minded, because I'm actually in the military. I definitely believe in strength before weakness. So depending on who gets in there, not Haley, for example, because Haley, wants to start wars, not knowing anything about the region she wants to start wars in. People who carry a big stick and are not averse to using threats like Donald Trump is, but might also even use some force now and again to get people back in the line. And by people, I'm talking about the terrorists and other such enemies of the United States. But, some minor warmongering aside, I definitely like the concept of staying out of the Israeli conflict, for example. Especially since it's hey, Israel can take care of Hamas on their own. They do not need American help for that. Israel versus Hamas is already overkill. They do not need American troops to help out. Except maybe to rescue American hostages, but when you got hostages in the middle of Gaza, how are you going to get someone in, get them, get all of them, and then get out? And they're probably not all being held in the same place. So you would have to make multiple strikes, and then you would have to get them out in the middle of the city with them having to cross miles and miles of hostile territory with civilians, or being flown out by helicopter and hope that they don't have anti-air missiles or something, the cheap ones, or something like that, or even just RPGs, depending on how low they have to fly or if they have to land to pick them up. But yeah, And I think just Ramaswamy dragging everyone else down just means that he basically ensured that none of them are going to be able to gain anything in the polls, and therefore he kind of wins by default. He might not gain anything, but who cares? He knew he wasn't going to win anyways, and giving Trump a huge leg up in defending Trump and staying popular with MAGA, even if he's not popular with a lot of the boomers, over time, his favorability is probably going to go up. Chris Christie is just going to fall into obscurity, like Hutchinson and Burgum. Ron DeSantis is never going to be forgiven by MAGA. The boomers are just going to be like, yeah, whatever. And if he starts talking more less combative in 2028, if he runs in 2028, the boomers would be like, okay, he seems to be a little bit wiser, I guess I can support him. Whereas Nikki Haley, she's only going to get support from boomers, and she's not going to get any young voters who are like anti-war now. So yeah, he's got the only salvageable career as far as I'm concerned, or definitively salvageable. And we'll see if guys like DC Drano eventually come around on him. I doubt it. DC Drano is he's got full Ramaswamy derangement syndrome at this point. Like, he refuses. Like, Ramaswamy's replied to him a few times. It's like, oh, come on, that's ridiculous. And DC Drano has doubled and tripled down on it. So yeah, that is my take on things, guys. And I'm sticking with that. So yep, I'm ending this video here and start the next one. Bye.